And those first experiences in the home started with my oldest son. It was in his room. He always told me he could feel the presence by him. I heard my daughter scream. My name is Mike Tornincasa. I have a YouTube channel called MT Paranormal Life. I'd like to say that I consider myself to be a paranormal explorer or experiencer. I don't claim to be an expert, and all of my theories and my opinions are all just based on my experience. A little bit about me. I'm a bicentennial baby. I was born December 12th, 1976, in the city of Youngstown, Ohio. I grew up in a city of Struthers, Ohio. I was married for about 20 years. I have four beautiful children that are amazingly smart. I did serve in the military. I was in the Marine Corps Reserve from 1997 till 2005. In 2003, I was deployed from active duty. I was deployed from the reserves to active duty in Iraq. After my enlistment in the Marine Corps, I enlisted in the National Guard, and that was in 2006 till 2014. During that time, I was also deployed to Iraq theater again in 2008. And I guess to understand where I'm at now with what I do with paranormal investigating, I guess I got to go back to 2015. That's pretty much where my first experiences started. And that was at my home. Then my wife and my children and we all lived in a home. We had been there for about 9 years before really anything happened. And those first experiences in the home started with my oldest son. And it was in his room. He was having strange experiences. There was like something interacting with him, like touching him physically, even moving his blankets. He always told me he could feel the presence by him. He even seen something in the reflection of his TV from times. And my wife also had some experiences there. She's seen some like shadows and some light anomalies like orbs.
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com.
And some of the most disturbing, I guess, experiences there started with my daughter. She was about 10 years old at the time. She was up in her room one time, and I was downstairs in the office, just at my computer desk. And I had the lights flash above me on the ceiling fan. And at the exact same time the lights flashed, I heard my daughter scream. I mean, like in terror. And I panicked. I got up. I ran upstairs. I wanted to see what was wrong. And there she was in her room, and she was laying on her bed. And she goes, "Dad, I saw Slenderman." And I realized my daughter must have seen some kind of a shadow person. So I did my best to calm her down. And there was another pretty concerning incident that happened probably several days, maybe a week after that. It was in my kitchen around the breakfast bar. I was at work. My then wife was standing by the breakfast bar at one end with my youngest boy, who was probably about 3 years old, by her side. And my oldest son was across the breakfast bar from her. And then they witnessed something that was pretty unbelievable. She was boiling water in one of those self-heating water boilers. It was like a pot, like made out of glass. It was full of water, had just boiled. And they witnessed this pot of water actually fly off the base, off the table, and shatter on the ground. And immediately my wife picked up my youngest boy then, because there's glass and hot water everywhere. And they told me about this incident when I got home from work. And I was really concerned about what had occurred. So I was talking to some friends at work at the time, and wouldn't you know it, one of my friends actually had a girlfriend who was part of a paranormal team in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. And when they heard the story They were interested in checking out the house for me. The team showed up. They probably had like 6 people with them. A couple were ladies who were mediums, and the rest of the team was listening with audio devices and recording. I witnessed some of it. I witnessed lights turning on and off, like little flashlights that seemed to answer questions. I heard some messages come through Spirit Box, and later on, they sent me recordings of EVPs. And I thought that was very interesting, and it seemed like something was going on. But I kind of wondered, like, all these things were happening to the family members, but nothing really seemed to happen to me. Like I had had any experiences, and I was kind of wondering, why that was. So I kind of continued my own investigating of the house. Um, that led to Halloween of 2015. I wanted to do investigation of my house. My second oldest son joined me for that. I turned my breaker off of the house because I didn't want any electrical wiring or anything to interfere with my EMF detector, which I had with me. And I had my cell phone just recording with an audio app. The only thing significant that happened during this was I had my phone and the EMF detector on the breakfast bar apart from each other. And my son and I both seen these sweeps on the EMF meter, like full sweeps from green all the way to red several times. And we both were like, wow, that was interesting. I wonder how that just happened. And there was nothing else that really happened through this night, through this investigation. So I kind of, in my mind, I wrote it off as like really nothing happening. So I never listened to that audio recording that I made. And probably like a month later, I was driving. I was going to go pick up my then brother-in-law, and I picked up my phone and I called him ahead of time. And in between the pause of the call, there was this voice. It sounded like a robot, more like a person who has one of the voice speakers, like the voice box, like the vibrating voice speakers. It sounded like a lot like that. And it was very clear. And I hear this voice say to me, "Hello, Michael." And I like froze up. I was like, whoa. I'm like, someone just spoke to me. And automatically my mind went back to that moment when I had my phone and the EMF detector on the bar and I saw the sweeps. And I thought, wow, did something happen? And right then I kind of knew I had to listen to this recording because I think maybe I may have picked up something. So I did listen to the recording finally. And at the end of the recording, I didn't hear anything throughout the whole part of it, maybe an hour long. At the very end of the recording, I was like signing off. And I was down in my basement. And I said something like, I think maybe we may have made connection with the spirit or something here today. And then I hear a man's voice go, "That's right." And again, I was stunned. I was like, that was a man's voice. It was not mine, very distinguishable. It was not my young son. I was like, that was a man. And it seemed like he maybe answered me. So this was very interesting. And those were, my very first real experiences. I did also want to mention that that same robotic voice spoke to me 2 other occasions through that same phone in the same manner in between a call. The other 2 times it spoke to me, I could not understand what it was saying. And it wasn't just 2 words that I heard, they're very clear. It was more, it was saying something. I never got a chance to reply on the next occasion I heard it. The third occasion, it sounded angry. Like I could tell in the voice. It was angry, maybe frustrated, and it was speaking. And that's when I actually spoke and I said, "I can't understand you." And that was the last time I ever had that encounter through the phone and the voice talking to me. And I was interested in this voice in the basement as well. I did take my audio recorder down there for a session, and I started talking to, talking as if somebody was there, even though I couldn't see him. And I was asking questions about this man. I think I asked something like, while I'm here recording, is there anything you'd like to say, maybe to family or friends that you never got to say? And there's the man's voice again when I listened to the playback. And at that point, I heard the man say, "Trust me." Very clear again, same voice that said, "That's right." And I was stunned. I was like, wow, I'm like, there's someone down here talking to me. And that was really the first experiences that I had where it was clear to me that there's spirits talking to me, and they're able to use my audio recorder to do so. And that's kind of what started me on my journey to where I'm at now with my channel. And that's what my main focus is.
Do you do you know of any reason why at that beginning point in your son's room when there was, beginning to be that sort of contact, anything that would have been different in your life or changed that dynamic that kind of drew this in, or reason why it opened up?
I really couldn't put anything together to it. The only thing that maybe I was thinking was that whoever was talking to me knew me. That when I heard that voice say hello, Michael, that was personal. I knew whoever was speaking to me must know me. And I had like my grandmother had passed away in 2012. And I kind of thought maybe it was maybe her or maybe a family member talking to me. And the strange thing, like you mentioned, this happened kind of like that something about this point when these things started happening. I really do not know. I really don't know. It was still kind of a mystery as to why this started.
Yeah. And you may never have an answer to that. It's really difficult to say. But you think that your grandmother, was your grandmother prone to be interested at all in paranormal activity or have any vision with things like this?
Well, that's something I really don't know about her. And I grew up with my grandmother. She pretty much raised me from when I was young. But that's one thing I really never knew about her, if she had any any interest or any experiences to relate to that. So that's really something else I don't know.
Yeah. Um, and what did you make of the shadow man? I mean, do you think that was related to the very same thing that later on spoke with you?
It's possible. I've thought of those things, trying to piece it together. If there was something to like the man's voice in the basement being connected. But from the sounds of like some of the EVPs that like the team that was there that picked up, it seemed like there was a lot of different voices also. So and like some of the mediums that were there told me that there was like a lot of new energy, a lot of different energy that was like coming and going. So it seemed kind of strange, I guess, in that way that there was like frequent new and different energies that were coming and going. And it's strange that it just started happening after so long. There's a lot of questions I have about it.
You know any history of the house or the location?
Well, I did look up some of the history. The home was built like right at the beginning of the 20th century. It was built like 1901. I did look at the previous homeowners. I even talked to some of the neighbors that knew some, because there were the family that built the home. They kept a couple generations in the home, and it only changed hands like two other times, a family before me and myself. But I couldn't find anything about actual passings in the home. So I was kind of I know like there was an incident where the one of the previous homeowners, the first homeowners, had a heart attack outside of the home, but they did not pass from it. So as far as I could find in the information I looked up, there hadn't been any deaths in the home. So again, it was more curiosity about what this energy is about that's going on in the house.
Do you know of any accidents or anything that, in the surrounding area, in the town itself, perhaps that occurred around that time, or anything unusual?
Well, around the same area, I mean, there's some history about they called them the three German witches. Um, there was a burial on a property by a tree, and I've seen it myself before. It's kind of like an urban legend for the area of New Springfield, Ohio, about these three ladies who were accused of being witches and were executed, and they were buried by the tree. And I did verify a location that had these stones, and they're written, in German. So um, there was something to that, but I actually did talk to this family later on, and I got some more information. And as I suspected, it was a family plot from German heritage. And I believe that whole thing was like an urban legend. But I mean, outside of like that, the town is pretty small. There wasn't really much that I found that would relate to anything strange about the area. But then again, there might be something I'm not aware of from the past. You look at how long the history is on our lands here, especially with the native influences in Ohio, especially. We were heavily inhabited around here from native cultures.
Yeah, that's for sure. I've talked to a lot of people that believe that wherever native communities perhaps were, that there's some residue that's left. There's some spiritual connection or some kind of a portal that seems to be associated with their presence for an extended period of time in a location.
Right. One of my earlier influences, Ramona Bearclaw. She's a elder medicine woman from the Blackfoot Mountain Indian tribe. And as soon as I started doing this, she reached out to me. And for some reason, she felt like connected to me. And she's always been there to help me. And, I've talked to her a lot. She's helped me with understanding how to communicate with spirits and entities. And she's also helped me with understanding messages because I've captured some EVPs of native languages before, and she's fluent with at least 8 native languages that I know. And she's listened to some of those and helped me understand some and given me an idea about some traditions and cultures.
Well, that sounds interesting. Anything about that you can share?
Well, one of the most interesting things, I actually have captured an EVP. It was around by where I'm at here in Towner's Woods. There's a Hopewell burial mound that was unearthed there back in the 1920s, and they studied the remains. What they found was 2 significant rock tombs and a burial mound. And there were others that were like gravel, but the remains were decomposed real bad. They couldn't identify, but there were 2 significant remains that they believe were important members of the tribe. And they dated the remains back to 300 BC to 600 AD, the Hopewell culture. And this was an area that I was very interested in, and I spent a lot of time there. And I did recordings, and I captured an EVP there that, when I heard it, was very clear, and it's of a native person speaking. And this is my cat here. um, the native person speaking, they said, "Hey Tutoka," and it was very clear. And when I heard that, I reached out to Ramona and I asked her about that. And she listened to it, and what she told me was that in Lakota, it sounds like granddaughter. And she believed that this was maybe somebody calling their granddaughter, like a relative spirit.
Well, that's interesting. How clear are these voices that you hear? Are they real distinct?
Well, that one was very clear, outside of the fact that it was fall and I was walking and then crunching a lot of leaves. But when you hear the EVP, and it was very clear, like it sounded like the person was standing nearby me. That's how clear this one was. And
Yeah.
that's why out of all the EVPs, that's one that really stands out because a lot of them are difficult. The frequencies just seem like they're on a range that's difficult to hear a lot of times, and they're not always very clear. But this one was very clear, and it was very interesting, especially since they say that most of the time when spirits communicate, coming from what I believe would be like a higher dimension or the spirit realm, there's no language barrier. And they're usually going to give you messages in your own language that you understand. And I do believe that, but this was something that made me start to wonder maybe that's not always the case, because it's very clear. You can hear a native language. You can hear the words, and automatically when I heard them, I knew. I was like, that's a native language. So that was very interesting and a very clear EVP.
What about time warps where you're recording something like that? Do you think that they are specifically projecting this for you, or do you think this was perhaps capturing something that existed in the past or maybe even in the future?
Well, I think when it comes to like the spirit realm, I think there's, from what I've listened to, what when it comes to varying messages, residual and intelligent. So I kind of think that the afterlife, that higher realm, maybe consists of a connection of both, where spirits might be in a state, or you could say, living out residual type of things that have happened, maybe something from the past that they that occurred that they kept with them, maybe it's something they, you know, created their own residual afterlife. And then there's the, like, I think like intelligent side, where you're getting direct communication that directly seems to talk to you and speak to you directly. And it seems like both of these come through, and I think part of that is because of you. um like you put, like, I'm going to go right to your chapter 17 in your book about co-creating your experiences, because I feel that the things that I've kind of put together in my thoughts relate a lot to that, specifically that's what I feel is going on. And I feel that that co-creation of these experiences, these the communication from the spirits is finding you. And sometimes with the residual energy, it might not necessarily directly be trying to find you in the same manner, like maybe a direct spirit that's communicating intelligently to you. But nonetheless, it's coming through. And I feel that your energy, your aura, um, is part of what's creating these experiences. And as far as like maybe the spirit knows, maybe they're not necessarily trying to let you hear these things that are happening in a residual state, but nonetheless it's coming through from like that higher dimension or the spirit realm. So I have thought of a lot about that. And like I mentioned, and you could see here, look at all these tabs from your book here, um, which I loved your book, by the way, and I thank you, especially when I hit, these are all like after chapter 17, um, or chapter 17 on. And I like, that's a good way to put it, co-creating our experiences. And I think that is what I feel is really going on with my interactions with spirits.
Well, it sounds like you have kind of come to terms with maybe there is an overlay of spirit with the physical world that we live in, and sometimes those two worlds interact.
Right. That's correct. Yeah, I do believe that. And I think, with the residual messages, it's like I was saying, I don't think, maybe in a way it's not purposefully trying to come through for you to hear parts of what's happening, maybe what they're reliving or what they're living out in their afterlife, or their realm that they're in. But it's coming through and there's some connection. And I think that that connection is because we're actively trying to engage with them. We're trying to um, make that connection. And again, like co-creating that experience, we're manifesting that.
Do you think after the initial incidences that were happening in your home, and then you bothered to pursue kind of understanding what this was, do you think that encouraged or aided some of the latter experiences that you've experienced?
Yes. Oh yeah, 100%. For me, my main focus has always been communicating with spirits and using ITC devices, like intertrans communication devices, that like pretty much any electronic device that you would use to communicate with spirits, using the devices and just engaging, reaching out. Those have been the keys, and those were founded on me wanting to listen. There's been something with me with my journey where I just felt compelled, like I wanted to reach out and listen to what the spirits are saying, because those early experiences, like I said, of a spirit directly talking to me, hearing the EVPs, I felt that there was something to that. And I wanted to explore that because it started to feel, the more I do it, the more it starts to feel natural. You know, like this isn't something that's like taboo or people should be afraid of. It feels more like our realms were connected, right? Like the spirits and our and us were connected. The spirits were once like us, and we will eventually be like they are. And there's, you know, a lot more that I feel connect us to the afterlife. And I feel that we can bridge that. And that's part of my, you know, my, when I created my channel, I said to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. And that's kind of what I was going for, was to communicate, bring the spirits to us to communicate, which felt natural to me.
Do you think all of the spirits you communicate with have been incarnate? They have been human at one time?
Well, I almost want to say yes, but I start to wonder sometimes if on a level of consciousness, and one of the other influences of mine is Billy Carson. And, you know, listening to him talk about higher dimensions and consciousness and light matrix that we live in. Consciousness, when I started to dig in a little bit on consciousness, I almost started, you know, I kind of have a feeling that maybe there is a level of consciousness that um, is traveling, and it might even be from the living right now. The consciousness, the thoughts of our brains that are leaving. They say they phase in and out of dimensions, and I always wondered maybe sometimes if some of the messages I get that seem more residual, maybe they're actually like bits of thoughts that are traveling through higher dimensions, through the universe. Maybe somehow, in the same manner like spirits communicate, maybe some of those are coming through as well. So I've had thoughts like that, and I don't, you know, put that away as saying that, well, that can't happen because look what we're dealing. You know, look what I'm trying to connect with. I think the possibilities are endless, really. So I have had thoughts like that. And also, I think you might be referring to like higher beings, maybe even non-spirit entities, which, you know, I've talked a lot about spirits and my main focus, but I've had a lot of experiences and I know 100% that there are more than spirits out there. There are entities out there. And a very personal experience, a class A sighting of an entity that I had when I started doing this is really changed my outlook on things, because I realized there's more than spirits out here. And it's possible that some of the communication I get could be from a higher being, like an entity, maybe a cryptid of some kind. And I have had those thoughts as well. And when I interact, I have that, you know, my mind is open to that. And when I listen to the messages, I do think that that's a possibility, that there could be another entity speaking to me through the device.
When you talk about the Class A sighting or interaction, can you give us more detail on that experience?
Right. I kind of use that term because I believe that's something from the BFRO reports. They refer to a Class A sighting as an actual sighting, seeing an entity, a Sasquatch, or, you know, any other cryptid. And I had my first sighting of something that was not a spirit. When I seen it, it was I go back to West Branch Park in Portage County, Ohio. That's where I started doing my filming, and what I thought was going to be my focus. You know, I thought what I was going to be doing was just out, you know, communicating, listening to EVPs. If I get communications, seeing what interactions I get on my devices with energy. And then at West Branch, during a recording session, I had a friend of mine with me who had one of my video recorders. He was kind of watching me, and I had another static camera watching away. And I happened to, you know, look around, and I got to one end of where I was at, looking into the woods. And that's where I had my first, let's say, Class A sighting of something that wasn't a spirit. And I seen this entity, which was tall, had to be about 8 foot at least. and I saw him in a clearing before he went behind more trees. But in the clearing, I saw very clear. It was not fluffy and furry. What I saw was looked like hardened scales almost. Maybe like I describe it as like some kind of armor. And there was a lot with its head. It had like hair, like tendrils or something, like hair like, and I could see them moving on its head as it moved and cleared these trees. And the best way I can describe it, because it's difficult to describe, but it very much was like the predator from the movie. I mean, it was not um, like swaying or staggering. I mean, it moved fast. It was moving on two legs like a warrior. It was moving quick, and it reminds me of the predator. Is the best way to describe it. And at that moment, when I had that sighting, that's where everything changed for me. I realized I'm not just out here communicating with spirits. I'm like, there's something there, and it's as real as you or I. And I still don't have any clue to what I seen, but it definitely was not a human.
Well, it sounds interesting. I don't get a clear image of exactly what that would look like. Have you seen any drawings or anything that would indicate that other people might have seen this same being?
Well, I've never made a drawing of it. Um, it was something that there was so much so quick that it was hard to absorb the details of it. But I mean, for a mental image, literally the Predator, seeing the Predator from the Predator movie had a lot of similarities to it.
Mhm.
And that was the best way I could describe it. And that event has changed how I do what I do, and how I think about my interactions now.
How did it change what you do?
Well, like I said, I may have been a little bit um, not so open minded or one sided as to what to expect out there while I was doing this, because I just jumped into doing this. I just wanted to do this my way. I wanted to basically, I just wanted to reach out and see if I could hear the voices that I heard before, see if there's voices talking to me through my recording devices, see if there's energy from spirits that interact with devices. I was kind of like with those blinders on. And then all of a sudden, I seen this thing. And that's when I was like, well, I have to accept that there's more out here. I just seen it, and I have to keep that in mind. And then I I kind of adapted as um, now I have an understanding that there are higher beings that are out here as well. And with that, I kind of when I openly communicate, whenever I go somewhere, I always vocalize my intent. Um, I make an offering of tobacco. I show my respect to Mother Earth and to the land. And I always make sure that I vocalize my respect to the entities that are out there and let them know that I am a visitor. Because as far as I see it, with the higher beings, they could be here. They could have been here for who knows how long. This could be their land. I could be intruding right now. So I always vocalize that I am a visitor and I come with respect to your home. So those are some of the things that I've adapted because I have an understanding now that there's entities out there.
Yeah. Have you ever seen anything in the way of the orbs or craft or anything like that with the UFO?
Well, actually seeing orbs with my eyes, I think there's been one occasion I can honestly say where I believe I've seen an orb. And it was one heck of an experience. It was actually directly in front of me, almost like a little fly moving. And it was very blue to my eye. I was recording and I had this documented. But the strange enough, when you see it on the recording, there's no blue light. Like you can't see as blue of a light as I seen, but you can actually catch it. It looks almost like a little phantasmal ball, and it was right in front of me. And for a moment, I was taken back because I'm like, what am I seeing? Is this something I'm looking for spider webs? Because I'm familiar with the things outdoors that can sometimes maybe trick your eyes to what you see. And this was like literally like a little blue orb in front of me. And I started to actually move my finger towards it like this. And I'm like, what's it going to do? And it like moved, kept moving away from my finger. And then I moved my hand away and it kind of moved back. And it was very interesting. I've never experienced like something like that with an orb that seemed to interact with me. And I've seen them on playback because it seems like something to the light on playback or even night vision where they show up better because of the reflection.
But no craft itself, no vehicles in the sky or anything like that.
Um, no, I honestly can't say. I mean, I have seen some strange things in the sky, but we have a lot of activity here with different crafts like um, planes and things. So I honestly can't say I've seen anything strange like crafts. Um, there was an entity um, that something about it to me seems alien. And I'm going to bring this up when I talk about, some of the manifesting, the experiences. I go to probably one of my influences that is closest to me, and that's I go to Jack Riggs, the cameraman from the Cameraman and Crew. Amazing human being. I mean, he's more like family to me than a friend now. I've been working with him ever since my sighting of this entity in West Branch. And he had an impossible sighting. I mean, this was an unbelievable, impossible sighting of an entity that came up to him, which never happens. It's, things are always elusive. It always seems like you never get, if you want to see a Bigfoot, there's a Bigfoot never just comes up to you and he's like, hey, you want to see me? Here I am. Or if you want to see, if you're looking, trying to communicate and you're like, well, I wonder if there's spirits. I wonder if something will manifest and show itself. It seems like that never happens. Something doesn't manifest and come up to you and be like, here, you want to see me? Here I am. Well, something manifested and showed itself, came right up to the cameraman during a live stream. There he was, live streaming on YouTube, holding his phone, red light in hand, looking for some eye shine, turns. And here comes this entity right up to him within 5 feet, like it's waving at the camera, like, hello, YouTube. Hello, Jack. I mean, this was impossible. What would the odds of this kind of a sighting be? Like 1,000,000,001, maybe. But this entity, something about it, and I challenge anybody to look at it. Um, go to the Cameraman Crew, his YouTube page, and go to Confronting Bigfoot at Claim 3. I'll even cheat 47 minutes, 20 seconds mark and watch this interaction and see this entity. This entity looks, when you see it, something about it just looks like it's alien. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, a Class A encounter of this such. And I think that was manifested. I think that came because of him. And that's about the only thing I've seen that to me looked alien. But it's hard to say because I'm already convinced that there's some things that I can't explain. I don't know what they look like, so I really don't know what it was. But I think I may have even have sent you that clip in the red light, and if you get a chance to look at it, and even Ramona seen it, and one of the things I asked her about what she thought it was, and she said that it's an alien. So there may have been something to to that.
Going back to those early experiences that you had where the water in the glass container was
Mhm.
thrown from the table and broke and kind of shattered everywhere and caused a mess. Did more of that sort of incident type of poltergeist activity happen in your home?
Well, not in the home, but now that you mention that, I've experienced that outdoors, and I've documented that on video, like impossible type of poltergeist activity, like a softball sized rock, two different occasions at the same area. We call it the swamp. This rock got launched, I mean, with some serious velocity, striking a tree, ricocheting the first time right by me, the second time directed towards one of our friends that work with us, Trapper. And in the same manner, almost the same size rock, too, literally like the softball size. And the impact, when you hear it, is very hard. Like however this managed to get projected, it just came out of nowhere and struck a tree or bounced off some trees. So I consider that to be poltergeist-like activity because I really don't know what caused this activity, but yet those kind of activities seem to be common even with poltergeist, even in homes with rocks being thrown or objects being thrown. So that's been more of my experiences with like poltergeist-like activity has been objects in the woods that seem to get projected towards you.
Or mostly they just rocks mostly, or are they sticks or other things?
Well, from what I've seen, the rocks were the ones that were the most noticeable, the ones that were seen. There's times where we've heard things that were strange, but we really don't know what they were. They could have been sticks, a lot of like knocks. Strange knocks seem to happen as well. But the rocks were the ones that seem to be the ones that have happened the most and that have been documented the most.
Well, what took you to the woods to do this research? It seems that a lot of people who do paranormal research and ghost hunting and things like that, trying to contact with spirits, will often go to a house or a location where something like that has occurred before. What took you to the woods to do your research?
Well, what first brought me to the woods was that story of the West Branch Witch and West Branch Park. I wanted to take a look at the area that I had discovered, which they say was the pressing site for the witch and this abandoned cemetery. So, getting into that area to find these locations is where it started. And what it turned into was I captured some amazing EVPs, so many, and I was kind of just bewildered. Like, wow, I'm hearing so many EVPs out here. I'm hearing people talking like a conversation, a man and a woman. I'm hearing different people talk. I've heard a native say "Danse," which is Cree, which is like "Hello, how are you?" I've heard that on an EVP. I've heard so many different EVPs just out at West Branch when I first started, and it just fascinated me. I was like, wow, all this is just coming from out here. And that's when I started thinking maybe these things happen not necessarily where you are. Maybe that's not important. Maybe they're happening just because of you. And maybe there's something to like the potential energy that's out there in nature, the plants, the trees. I even did a calculation once because I was curious to the potential energy of like trees. And I did like an E-volt calculation that took like an average size 100-foot oak tree that's like 2,000 pounds, took the carbon atoms, did a calculation to figure out how many e-volts were in the carbon atoms that were stored in a tree of that size, converted it to volts, and it turned out to be like 17,000 volts of potential energy just in carbon atoms in one average size oak tree. And then I kind of wondered, I was like, wow, maybe there's something to all this potential energy assisting with like these co-created experiences I'm having out in nature. And then, that thought process, I started really realizing and just feeling that there's something to being around that kind of energy. And I kind of enjoy it. It seems like there's something about it that is like like serene, something about it that's comfortable. So I do prefer to spend my time going to different places, mostly outdoors, and just reaching out and seeing what happens. And the results I've documented seem to show that um, these events that seem to be manifested, even outdoors, seem to just come to me. The voices will come through the EVPs or they'll come through my device and talk to me. And it's been pretty amazing.
So you think the trees like act almost like a conduit or almost like an antenna for some of the spirits to be able to interact?
I think that's possible. I think there's definitely something to it, something to the energy of the earth, of everything, trees, plants. I think that um, it might act like that. It definitely seems to be maybe a power source. Maybe there's just more to it that don't understand, but I do think there's something to it, and I think it has to do with the energy.
Well, that makes sense. In my book, I do talk about, earth spirits and all of the things that, in times past, civilizations have had major interaction with these earth spirits. And somewhere along the way, we sort of put them into a different place in our mind and kind of ignore them now. But it makes sense that all of the energy that exists everywhere would also maybe have a spirit that accompanies that. And also humans. I like your concept that that the human energy that's also projected, it becomes a conduit for these spirits to be able to interact with us. If one just isn't on that vibration, they're probably not going to have that interaction.
Right. And like they say, every atom of your body, it has a frequency. So it's like your whole body is basically like an aura, or I like to think of it as like a beacon. And I think that beacon basically is you, everything about you. And the higher beings and spirits, I think, see this beacon, and I think can be attracted to this beacon. And I do believe the higher beings can basically, when they see your aura, when they see you, they pretty much understand you. And I think that says something about certain people having these kind of encounters. I think that is a big part of the manifesting these experiences, and it has to do with something about um, your aura that is key to having these experiences.
Well, I can agree with that as well. That if you could see something in its purest energy form, you would be able to read it and know it immediately. Whereby, as humans, we sometimes meet up with people or come in contact with certain locations, and there's maybe a feeling, but we have to process that into really understanding what it is we're perceiving. Maybe there's a pure uh, process where you can just know the energy and know exactly what it is.
Right. Yeah, I do have like three key factors I believe that are important to having this kind of connection or these manifesting these experiences. And I consider them like core values, not to steal from the Marine Corps, but I consider them like core values that I believe manifest these experiences. And it's acknowledgement, understanding, and respect. The acknowledgement is key. Acknowledging the higher beings, the entities that are there, whatever you're trying to reach out and connect with, acknowledge them, not wondering if they're there or maybe they're there, but knowing they're there, acknowledge them. Understanding that they are higher being, probably in every way, and understanding that the spirits that you might be communicating with might be even in a residual state where they may have had a lot of trauma, and maybe that is part of their afterlife, and you're hearing that, and understanding that your approach should always be with kindness and love, and always be genuine. um, and then when it comes to respect, respect the entities there, respect the higher beings, talk to them, interact with them just like you would if they're your friend. Those things are what I feel always makes me and makes my experiences manifest the way they do. I always felt like that those are important things that you should probably do and keep in mind, and how you should interact.
What are your thoughts on reincarnation, that these spirits come and go?
Well, I've kind of thought about that. um, I do think why we're in this form, right? Like I had thoughts like that, like why are we in this form? Like I don't know if necessarily we were, our form is first before the afterlife, or maybe if there's a cycle where it repeats. I've thought about that, and I always felt like this form we're in now, this 3D world we are as humans, I feel is like a trial. And I think that trial is meant um, to build up that aura, that energy field that you have. And I think that plays a part in the afterlife. I think manifesting the afterlife is something that happens. And I think that happens based on your trial and how you are here in this realm that we're in now before we pass on. And I think there might be something too if there's a certain state you're in here, if you're maybe there's some things you didn't get out of being here on earth, and like we all are as humans now, there's something you didn't get that was meant to be understood before you pass on, that you might go through it again. So I think there could be something to reincarnation that just feels like that's a cycle maybe that we go through, and maybe some of us repeat the cycle for reasons that maybe there's something, like I said, we didn't get from this life while we're here now before we pass on.
What do you think has been the most important part of your research that you've done so far? What stood out the most to you?
um the connection, the connection of it all. Like, I'm starting to feel a connection grow, and I think that's been something that has been changing, because I think my journey I'm on, the path I'm on with connecting, is, I feel, is right for me. And I feel that's growing, and I feel like my senses are starting to get a little bit better with feeling energy and feeling changes in the environment, and then seeing more interaction from that. And I think the most important thing is to showing that, using that energy and reaching out, just reaching out and connecting to what's out there, to the spirits out there, to the entities, reaching out there and seeing how there's something out there talking, there's spirits out there talking to you, and there's entities that will interact with you, and showing that that's something I feel is natural and positive, and just letting others experience that with me. And that's why I document all this and show it. And I think that's the most important thing, is showing that, is showing what I do, and showing how that I think this is something that is normal and maybe even meant for us to do.
Well, tell the audience how they can get in touch with you, watch your YouTube channel, give us all that information so they can connect with you, because I'm sure they'll have many questions after this.
Okay, sure. Well, all my information, all of my experiences are documented on my YouTube channel, which is MT. That's my initials, Mike Tornicasa, MT Paranormal Life on YouTube. And I do have a Facebook group, MT Paranormal Life. You can go on YouTube and find it, and you can join. And the community is great. We've got a decent amount of people, and everybody I've come across is fantastic. The people in the community that I've met through YouTube are all fantastic. You can find me mostly both of those ways. You can even email me on my YouTube channel. You could go to my information, and my email is there as well. And, reach out to me. You got experiences you want to share. I'm always open-minded to doing things with people, like subscribers or anyone. I've done it before, and I'm always interested in other stories, and even places that you might suggest to go check out and see what happens.
Sounds good. Well, I wish you the best in your journey of finding all of this, and it's been an enlightening interview. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for
Me
joining me,
too.
Mike, and I'll let you know when this comes out.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.